Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 75. So we are starting, we're obviously, I think this is possibly going out at the end of January now, maybe even the start of February. So yes, we are getting through 2022 and we have another fantastic guest with us today, all the way from America, who I will introduce in a minute. But first of all, we are missing one of our hosts today. Mr. Paul Bassett is working in London. He is training people as we speak. So you have 2/3 of the Health Oddity team with you today. So Mr. Peter Lant in Bath, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. That was quite tense there. I thought you were talking yourself into a corner. You're like end of January, beginning Feb. I'll carry on. I'll carry on.
I thought you were saying I don't know when we're gonna see if this is any good before we send it out. One of the guys didn't even bother to show up. So
I'm thinking we're doing 3 of these this week, aren't we? So I'm gonna have to try and work out when's going out when, and I'll be snowboarding next week. So
it's going to be tricky this week, isn't it? But yes. I'm looking forward to this one because I've had a look at the website, and I've seen how the bios are done. And this guy wants the superpower of Wolverine, of healing like Wolverine. And I've got that, by the way. And my missus says, because I've had like I had something dug out of my back at the hospital, and she had to change the dressing. And after a couple of days, she was like, it's gone. And I was like, Wolverine, there you go. Fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
I'm in New York. That's where Xavier School for Gifted Children is. So
well, I might come over there then.
So we are joined today from Brooklyn, New York, by Steve Holiner, or Coach Fury, as he is also known. I'm not going to tell you too much about Steve. I'm going to let him do that in a minute, but he runs a small gym facility, a training studio in Brooklyn called the Speakeasy of Strength, which is fantastic. And at some stage today, I'm sure we'll find out, how he came on that kind of the name and the kind of philosophy behind the Speakeasy of Strength, which is really great. Steve is a master original strength instructor, and we've had Tim Anderson on the podcast in the past from Original Strength. He's a master DVRT instructor, and I'll be holding up the acronym hammer so he can explain to all of us DVRT.
That's driving instruction, isn't it?
A driving instructor.
That's the DVLA. Sorry.
DVLA over here. He's a former master RKC instructor, which again, we do kind of know the RKC. We've talked about that a lot in the podcast. He does Indian clubs, TRX. He's a skateboarder. He's a Godzilla collector. He's a geek. He's a Star Wars. I love this guy already. We've just, it's really good. So we're going to have a fantastic podcast. So first of all,
do you want me to leave? You two can have a room.
This was a Mandalorian helmet only invite.
Yeah, you should have had. Yeah, we'll put that picture out as well in a minute. The one we took at the start. So, Steve, welcome to the Health Oddity podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It is the first time we've actually kind of spoke. We've kind of conversed online a bit and things, but do you want to kind of tell our listeners and us, a bit more about yourself, kind of how you got to where you are now, what you're doing now, what you focus on, and your kind of journey up to this point, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep it short. Maybe pick the hammer up if the acronym hammer up if I'm just boring people. Well, I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up about 45 minutes from Brooklyn in Long Island. It was a cold, windy day, and I'm kidding. Basically, like most people, I was never into fitness. I was never into sports. I'm like a heavy metal dirtbag skate punk kid since I saw Back to the Future on. And I never really worked out until after I graduated high school. Me and my best friend started going to like a Bally's, Jack LaLanne. I don't know if that chain ever got out by you. And I did what I guess was like what I thought was just training, was basically bodybuilding without realizing. And I wasn't really following my nutrition or anything. I was young enough, but I got like shredded. And my heroes were the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Henry Rollins, Bruce and Brandon Lee. And that was sort of what I was looking for. And for an amazing 5 years, I went from being the chubby kid wearing his t-shirt at the beach in the pool to being like shredded. And then once I got out of college, every year after, I started putting on weight. More importantly, as a skateboarder, you know, I knew that I was going to pay for injuries at some point later. You know, you go like, I'll pay for this later. And now for the last 20 years, I'm in the later. I'll be 50 this year. So I've already, at some point around just before I had my daughter, I'd already had a shoulder surgery from skateboarding. And then I was carrying around one day and I was still skating. So I was still like one of those guys, like I had the innate conditioning that if you put me in a skate park, I'm going to go. But then I had my daughter at 6 months, like on my shoulders, and this little kid who weighed almost nothing was starting to hurt my back and my bad shoulder. And I was like, I need to be a strong parent. And I knew that at this point I was in visual effects and advertising as an executive or senior producer. I knew that I couldn't control my weekends, that I couldn't control my evening hours. So I found the closest gym that opened at 5:30. So for about 2.5 years, I just started weightlifting and I started getting in shape. And then I started running, which was really weird for me now. And I guess the biggest thing would be, one, I wanted to be a strong dad for my daughter, and I have a son now. I mean, she's going to be 15, which is crazy this year. And my son's 12, almost 12 and a half. And then with the running, I was running so much, not really any sort of structure, and my marriage would later end. So I think literally, I think I was running away from home, not to make light of it, but I had signed up for New York Roadrunner. So out here, if you're not like, I don't know all the rules, but if you want to do the New York Marathon. So I'm like, I'm going to make this a goal. I'm going to be the New York Marathon. And 2 weeks after I signed up for New York Roadrunners to start doing all the pre-qualifying checklist things, I blew my knee out at the same skate park. I blew my shoulder out. So I blew my PCL going in the deep end of the bowl, basically straight to knee, even though I had knee pads. And in the time of recovery for then, I already felt that recovering from an injury, being fit, even though I didn't know what I was doing, was way better, way smoother, way quicker to recover from than my shoulder, which was pretty much a nightmare. So I already had this sort of like built in, like I could tie my own shoes, even with my leg in a brace. I had a PCL replacement, so I have a cadaver tendon in the back of my leg. And then as I was recovering, my best friend, same guy going to Bally's, we were like, he had started doing Muay Thai. We were always into martial arts films. That's another element of my geekhood. I went to film school to try to make Jackie Chan films. He started taking Muay Thai and I'm like, let's do it. Like, I want to try when I'm cleared. As soon as I got cleared, we did a trial class. And then we did another trial class at this place called 5 Points Academy. 5 Points Academy has been the hub of hardstyle kettlebell training. First, before there was any two groups, for the RKC, the only place in New York City that was hosting HKCs and courses at that point. And that's how I found out about kettlebells. Actually, next month will be 12 years since I guess I was officially introduced to kettlebells and started using them, or in 2 weeks, February. Maybe that's when this comes out. I don't know. But basically kettlebells really like sung to me. I was like, all the time that I was wasting basically doing like, you know, the 2 day on, 1 day off, back and buys, chest and tries, maybe do legs, all that stuff. I was like, wow, I just did this in 30, 40 minutes and I feel smoked, but I started feeling better. And then when I started realizing, specifically in pressing, that with my repaired shoulder, I was able to do stuff that I was not able to do before. It really sunk in. So at a certain point, I just started taking certs as a way to, like, it was hard for me to schedule personal training, but I'm like, I could take a day off, and I had the money through advertising to be like, I'll take this cert. Like, I took my HKC to learn how to get the kettlebell swing out of my back and learn how to do a get up. I didn't care about the cert at the time. I'd only done one get up prior, like the day before the cert. And then after that, at the time, you were able to take your HKC money and put it all towards an RKC. And then in my head, the RKC was like, that's my New York Marathon. That's my challenge, right? I'm already in my mid 30s at this point, climbing towards late 30s. And it was in that journey towards the RKC that I was like, maybe this is a career that, like, I don't expect to make the money I was making in advertising, but maybe this is something where I could legitimately sustain myself and my family and help people. And I know that sounds super corny, but with about 14 or 15 years in advertising, like helping develop and do post-production on Subway commercials and pizza commercials and, some cool stuff. And for sometimes I really loved it. And then I was just like, man, this is just a beatdown of a lifestyle where I'm making a lot of money, but I'm miserable. And I had done the mental checklist: skate shop, not going to happen, can't make money. Skate park, can't afford to do it. It would be so expensive. The people that I'd want skating there couldn't skate there. Comic book shop, kind of a dead industry. Marvel films, super huge. Comic book shops, not making any of that money. It's that I literally went through all of that stuff. Record stores, yeah. Spotify. And then finally I was like, well, I could become an independent trainer. It's kind of punk rock. I could start doing it. I've already been taking classes. I had a couple at this point. I had taken an TRX course. So I was pretty good on a TRX. I'm going all over the lines, but anyway, through kettlebells, I found out about TRX, Indian clubs. And one of my friend and mentors, Gavin Van Vlack, who owns Diamond Heart Jiu-Jitsu, Physical Culture Collective, was like, as a member, he came up to me. He was an instructor, came up to me. He's like, dude, you need to check this out, and handed me an ultimate sandbag. And so pretty early on, the main sort of quote unquote implements, I didn't know of systems yet. They sang to me like skateboarding, because it is about the technique. It is about the simplicity of it. It is about not needing a ton of stuff to get that done. So anyway, RKC, I basically, on the journey, I asked my boss, who was the owner of the gym, who would become my boss, Steve Millis, who's I believe a senior senior strong first instructor now. Hey, if I do this, I'm thinking about going part-time. What would that be like? And he's like, pass it and teach Monday. So I already had, like, people knew me already. They saw that I was lifting a lot and that I was really getting deep on that. So I started teaching classes, and then I started doing like one-to-one training. I thought I was good. When I think back about it, I wasn't horrible, but Jesus. And that's been the journey. Literally, I taught at 5 Points for about 4 years, and then went to Mark Fisher Fitness for almost 4 years, which completely changed my game and outlook on all of this stuff. And then went out, and then through that ended up getting all those acronyms, collecting acronyms.
So what we'll do to begin with, I'm going to hold this up to start off with. So we've already used a few. So RKC is Russian Kettlebell Challenge.
Yep.
HKC was that hardstyle
kettlebell certification. Yeah.
Yeah. TRX, I'm not actually even sure if that stands for anything.
I think that's like, it used to be like something, I think originally it was like total body resistance training or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I might have seen that at a restroom wall at some bar. Like, that's what that is.
TRX is one of them brand names that's become like Hoover. So Hoover over here means vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Anything that you do the floor. It's like Walkman was only Sony, wasn't it? But everything that played a tape, if anyone remembers those, it was a Walkman. And it's like, no, it's not. That's Sony. Your other one is a personal stereo,
a portable cassette player.
Yeah. So TRX has become one of them. Any suspension trainer, people just go out TRX, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. Band-Aid, right?
Yeah.
Band-Aid. Everybody says Band-Aid. It's an adhesive bandage.
So you mentioned I've spent quite a bit of time with Mark Fisher over done a few kind of weekend things with Mark and stuff. So you did some work at Mark Fisher. Well, you're with Mark Fisher Fitness in that's actually in Manhattan, isn't it? You were there for 4 years. Yeah.
Part of the city called Hell's Kitchen. And then I was part of the launch team when they opened their Bowery location, which is no longer open. But not my fault, everybody. But I was part of the launch team. And the interesting thing with MFF, it was the greatest place, is one of the greatest places on earth. Between being a full-time trainer and at this point traveling and certifying instructors, doing all those workshops and certifications, and then still needing to do independent training to survive. I couldn't handle all the schedules. And I really, commuting in and out of the city was starting to really be a drag. And it was time for me to just try to rebuild a business, or build the business officially from Brooklyn, so that I'm not doing that.
So do you live in Brooklyn yourself?
I live wonderfully, literally 4 blocks the short way from this gym.
Okay.
So the Speakeasy is 516 3rd Avenue on the corner of 3rd and 12th Street. I live on the corner of 3rd and 16th Street.
Okay.
So I have the best 3.5-minute commute. I'm friends with all the shop owners from here and there. So like we're all saying hi, and it's quite lovely. And all our members, you know, in Brooklyn, you don't get a lot of people traveling. Like they're not hopping in their car to come to you. So like most of our members are neighbors, which is the perfect thing that I want it to be.
Yeah.
But we're small, and we opened right before the pandemic. We opened in officially in this location July 2019, and then we were closed March 2020. So we had just enough of a membership to help us pull through. And then it's been like, yeah, we're growing. And then here's another wave, or here's another something. So it's been an interesting ride. I don't know, and I will never know what a normal year of business would have been like here.
Yeah. Yeah. So
but we're here. So like, I'm stoked. That sounded such a bummer. Folks, things are good. Like we're okay.
I mean, there are, I mean, we obviously speak to lots of people from all over on the podcast, and it's amazing the number of, you know, high level kind of experienced, well-known trainers who through the course of the last 2 years have, you know, who previously had facilities, who have, you know, lost those facilities or decided to shut them up, you know, maybe voluntarily, or just couldn't survive, you know, and now they're kind of maybe moving more online and they're doing different stuff. So I think anyone who's managed to keep going, you know, over this period, especially like you say, you only had, what was it, about 6 months before?
We had about 9 months before we were shut down. I'd say like the 2 of them before the shutdown, we knew it was coming. Like we were very open with our membership and having conversations. And I through some of these acronyms, you know, I was doing a good bit of distance coaching before online coaching was like a thing, helping people prep for certs, or people that took courses to me and with me and wanted to, you know, keep moving forward or something. So I believed in online coaching already. I had done a handful of Skype sessions over the years, didn't love them, but it was, and then I also have a podcast, which I do very infrequently now, but for once a week for a couple of years, the Coach Fury podcast. So I was very familiar with Zoom. So we came up with a very easy PDF document with the Zoom links and the schedule and an assessment thing. We handed out kits of gear. So when we were closed on a Monday evening, Tuesday morning, people came in and grabbed like a bell, a band, maybe an Indian club, and they went on their way. And then that night we were operating close to full. We never cut our rates. I didn't charge people for equipment, but like we never cut our rates because we're online. It's like, this is the best anyone has right now. And then really tried to, I used to work with Strength Faction as a mentor. Still huge supporters of those guys. You know, I helped some other gyms actually take it. This is exactly what the template is for this PDF. Go do it to simplify the process. And I think the thing we did different, which helps us, is I never stopped those protocols. Like we've had, you know, whether it's mask mandates or space mandates, but people are still hopping in on Zoom for small group. So I have virtual real estate that this tiny place couldn't fit. So we sometimes have more people in sessions now post or intra pandemic than we did before the pandemic. And we're not there yet where we need to be, but like it's a start. So
that's great though, because then you've obviously got the right people. You've got a community, so you're part of the community, so people value you. I mean, I did something very similar, and I actually offered to people. I said, look, if we're going to go online, I train outside anyway. I train my guys outside, but I said we're going to go online, and I'll do it half price for you because it'll not be the same. You'll have one bell, and that's it. I'll lend you a bell, blah 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 blah. And they all said, the whole lot of them were like, no, we'll pay full price because we want you to be there when all this ends. Because they realize the value of it. Like, well, if we don't pay you, you disappear. And then what do we do? So it's a two-way street, isn't it? Which is great. And when you've got people like you've got, like you say, like that, who value it, then that's you're already home and dry, aren't you? That's brilliant.
It was pretty, it also being so new, it showed that our members really were getting something out of us aside from a workout. You know, you know that they like you because they're coming back now, but you didn't know that it meant more. The two things that I think trainers are sometimes great and horrible at, we have big hearts, we're too quick to give away stuff for free and discount our services.
Yes.
Right. So the way our approach was, I'm also super transparent with my membership. Like I'll ask them feedback on things and we'll talk, but people were like, I might go on pause and see when the dust settles. And I, out the gate, was never like, this is going to be 2 weeks. I knew this was going to be a minimum of 3 months, minimum. And I said, look, I really appreciate that, but just know there might not be a speakeasy when the dust settles, and you still need to work out. Like, if we're closed longer, you still need to be healthy, right? That's the thing that's unfortunately, whatever side, I don't like the political side of, whether it's a hoax or not. Like, we lost people, friends lost people, like there's a thing. So I have my point of views, but either way, this is what's going on. I'm being communicative, and people respected it. But I also took the position that I don't think anybody's paying me to use my TRX. I don't think anybody's paying me to use my kettlebell. They're using me and my team to program and coach. And I wasn't going to cut that. Now, what we did do is I created something called No Crew Left Behind. So if you got, say, a 15% pay cut, I could cut your membership 15%. If that didn't cut it, tell me what you can pay and I'll take it. If that doesn't cut it, you have a free membership. Like, if you can't afford this, and people loved it, people would dip for a little bit, maybe throw in some bucks, and then they would come back on. But even to the other members, it really showed that, like, if you got me through this far, I'm not letting you go. That's one thing, versus like most of the industry, I felt like hopped on Facebook and gave away everything for free. And then we complain that people don't value our services. Well, there's an entire YouTube now, 2 years of pandemic proof workouts. And let's face it, how complicated can it be with the if we're all doing one kettlebell or two kettlebells, how complicated?
You know what, that what you've just said there is brilliant, because it shows community, and it shows that everybody is in it for everyone else as well. So it's actually a collective. And there's a book I read, I think Chet, one of our former guests, actually sent it to me. I was in a book club with him. I've got it up there somewhere. It's called Rework. And that had a few examples of stuff. And I didn't even know, when I read that book, I didn't know what furlough was. I only knew, I learned what furlough was in that book. And then everyone knows what that is now because of this pandemic. But there was a company that had to furlough staff because it wasn't doing so well. But what it did, it furloughed the staff that didn't need the money, and basically said, put your hands up, and if you can go on furlough and you can afford it, great. If you can't, let us know. But then what started happening within that company, because people loved working for it, people started trading their furlough, saying, I don't need the money, so you can have, or I've had to take a pay cut. And if you can't afford your pay cut, you can buy some of my, and then basically, so they kept all of their staff on. And then when they got out of this, when they got out of their financial situation, it all kind of, they said, right, we're going to start paying you again. And the back paid people and everything as well. So their staff all stayed. They were all really loyal, and they all worked hard, and they all got on really well because they all looked after each other. And that's a society, isn't it? Right. Like in a small place. So it's, it means a lot, that, and it must make you feel really good knowing that.
I run on fueled by gratitude all the time. And it's just funny because with the nickname Fury, that is not my upbringing. That is something that I learned a lot of at Fisher. But when we have people in here and like that person is directly keeping the lights on, that person is directly helping me, feed my kids, my wife, that person is allowing me to live. I work in a dream house for me. Their only thing missing here literally is a mini ramp. Like that's it. It's like my little tiny fantasy factory. That old Rob Dyrdek show. If I could go back and tell 13-year-old Steve that, like, you're going to go work in a place that has Star Wars helmets, Keanu Reeves on the wall, skateboard decks, toys, it would be like, especially if I said you were going to do fitness, he'd be like, yeah, no way, Jock. But he would be like, it's, like, I'm so grateful for that even when the struggles are there, which they're deeper than I ever intended or expected, I still have that. I haven't lost that. And I think, unfortunately, it is heartbreaking how many places closed based both on the financial loss and like just things changed. Like, I had friends had a very successful gym in Midtown Manhattan, and their location was one of the great things. I mean, they were all crushing it as coaches and stuff, but they were Midtown Manhattan. So people come into work, they would go there in the morning on the way back and then shower and go home. Well, guess what's like not happening? People aren't going into the city. So we were lucky by our location. We were lucky. We didn't even have barbells at the time. We don't use barbells in small group. We didn't even have any though at the time that this happened. So it's like, here's a kettlebell or a sandbag or an Indian club, and you're able to do close to everything we're doing here from home. And it really helped a lot of people. It was a little hard to start stripping some of that away in terms of how flexible we were, but everyone can still hop on Zoom or come inside. So when I don't know how Omicron hit you guys, but here it was December was the worst single drop we've ever had. We dropped 26% income because in the holidays, I don't know how it is out there. The thing we're realizing now through, the summer, like August is usually a slow month, December, right? Holidays. Pre-pandemic, people go away for a week or two. Like there's a blending of inherent mimicking accents. That's not yours. It just came out shitty. I tend to do that, by the way. For a week or two. Now they go for 3 or 4 weeks because they'll go visit their parents and they'll Zoom their work from wherever they're going, right? So then financially that hits. And then Omicron, people started mitigating not going out because they didn't want to blow away their flight to their family or their friends or their grandparents. So we now can, with all our systems in place, we can just fluctuate with that though. Like we can limit capacity, everything's here. We can force on Zoom, everything's there. We have a 3-foot poster of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and like Lizzo on the wall. People aren't fighting me if I say, like we did say for 6 weeks, we had a internal mask mandate, not city thing. But I was like, look, if I can minimize by any means, we're going to try to minimize by all means, but still train, right? That's the thing that I try to stress. Like some of these scenarios suck. Like if somebody says Zoom, if you're fully capable and there was not a pandemic and you live near a gym, if someone tries to tell you that online training is better than in-person training, they're lying. And that to me is actually a little bit of the disservice that the internet Instagram community is doing. They're trying to say it's convenient. It's like, you know what's convenient? Peloton. You know what stock's dropping? Peloton. You know why? People need to be around people. And you can coach pretty damn well online, right? Better than most people want to give credit for, but it's not the same as being in person. But it's also like, people need to be around people. And I think trainers are forgetting, I'm going on a soapbox. Is that all right? What trainers forget now is that a person is on Zoom potentially all day already for work still, where we're not in that position. Or maybe we only have 3 to 4 to 5 hours of sessions versus 8 to 10 hours of meetings to then be like, hey, come and work out on Zoom. Like there was enough stuff in the 80s and 90s about praying to the television and the false god that is TV. I mean, and now we're like literally for convenience and necessity on it. So that's just like one of the things that we try to do here, like make sure that our members are able to pick what they feel comfortable for. And we don't hard sell one or the other. I let them make that decision that fits. And it's been super smooth and it's not judgmental. Some people wear their masks inside here now. Some people don't. Nobody gives anybody dirty looks. In NYC right now, we do have to check for proof of vaccination. I'm not the biggest fan of mandates, but I'm personally pro-vaccine. But I guess that's part of the vibe that we set an expectation and an amount of listening and personality. I don't mean just me, I mean just culturally, that we don't have these fights that a lot of people have, and I think that's why we're here.
I thought, we found certainly recently with a lot of people, like you say, a lot of the people who we're about half an hour outside of London, so a lot of our members will travel into London to work, but at the moment they're mainly working from home still, like you say, online and things. So actually for them to come out, even if they're only coming out to us once, twice, 3 times, 4 times a week, just to get out the house for an hour and just to go and be around other people and to train and to meet people and just to be away from the screen is great. I've got a couple of questions for you, Steve, which I want to make sure we get in. First one, Coach Fury. So where did Coach Fury come from? And then the second one is about the name of your facility, the Speakeasy of Strength. How and why you came with that. If you can sort of talk us through that.
Absolutely. So I'll give you the version of the story for the nickname that does not make me sound like an asshole. The name is I by nature, earlier in my life, I would definitely define myself as a very angry kid and angry person. I have a sense of humor and I'm able to laugh at myself, but I definitely have a lot of inner demons and frustrations that fitness, the side of fitness no one talks about. Like it creeps its head up in the pandemic world about mental health, but not enough, right? Like no way near enough. And one day I was with a bunch of friends at my old apartment in another part of Brooklyn. And it was like, I don't know, 8 a.m. on 8 p.m. on like a Thursday. It wasn't late night or anything. And we started hearing banging on the floor, meaning the ceiling below us, our floor. That apparently we were making too much noise. And on the way out, I politely knocked on the door to be like, hey, were you guys banging on the ceiling? And somebody got very aggressive. Yes, we were. You were making too much noise and got in my face. And let's say I shouted some very direct things at a couple face to face with them. And I guess I turned into a thermometer, like an old school thermometer, and my head went red like a cartoon. And one of the people we're with started yelling Bald Fury. So the nickname is actually Bald Fury. And it caught on to the point where my business emails at visual effects companies would say like Bald Fury at click3x.com. Like it just caught on.
Yeah.
And then since I had never been interested in sports whatsoever, when I did thinking about becoming a coach, I was like, Coach Fury sounds really funny. Like it's just silly. I will also say I did not value what a coach is yet, the way I cherish it now, the importance of it now. And I asked Steve Millis, like, for one of the owners of 5 Points, I was like, I'm thinking of using Coach Fury. What do you think? He's like, yes. And then, so I was using that for my work emails. And then you go to Mark Fisher Fitness, right? And Mark Fisher Fitness generally hands out nicknames, but I go in already with an established nickname. So our staff paperwork would be like, I don't know, first name, Mark, second name, Fisher, third would be his nickname. My first name was Coach. My second name was Fury. So people would call up and be like, is Steve there? And there'd be like, no Steve here. So I spent this awkward time of introducing myself to people at courses and at the Speakeasy of like, hi, I'm Steve. Also, some people call me Fury. And then it is just more memorable. So like if you Google Coach Fury, you'll be like, all right, Coach Fury. If you go Google Coach Steve Holiner, you're gonna have to like, how does that spell? What was that? So it became a simplified thing. It works for me and against me because people are expecting sometimes like some sort of like convict prison warrior boot camp. And I'm like, hey, let's hug. What'd you think of the Matrix 4? But that contrast is also, a thing. But it was just, that was it. It came out of me having anger issues that fortunately through fitness and fitness related personal development, I would not say they're gone, but it's hard to stay angry at the world when you're also super grateful for those around you. So that's, again, one of those weird things. The mental health thing is a big thing right now that I also, in terms of like being around people, I think is important. Because I don't know if any, if you guys have kids, like talk to some, not specifically about your kids, but talk to some therapists that work with kids right now. It's gnarly. It's really gnarly. So yeah, that's the nickname. And then the Speakeasy came from when I left Mark Fisher Fitness, I had this bold plan to do a whole bunch of online distance coaching pre-pandemic, right? This is like 2017, 2018. And I realized when I started to have like a relative amount of success with that, which was about 15 members paying monthly for programs, that I did not like doing that at all because I'm on the computer all the time. And, we're always like, as gym folks, we're like, yeah, you got to get away from the desk. And guess what I did? I gave myself another desk profession. So it was a lot of work. It just wasn't as rewarding. I think I was good at it. I worked with some amazing people, but I just found it harder and harder to get motivated to write programs. So I tried to rebuild a class that I used to do at that same gym that I started working at when I wanted to be a strong dad. And we were in talks about me renting part of their basement space. And then rather unexpectedly, they closed down. And then I got in a weird thing where someone used my name to try to leverage renting space at a gymnastics spot. And it was really kind of weird. And my wife finally was like, look, we have a big apartment. Why don't you do your small group in the living room? And fortunately, our big apartment is also fairly run down. So it was like, yes. So we started doing small group in our apartment. I'd always had a little personal training area that I would work out in and do some, if you go through any of my YouTube library, you'll see the whole history of the Speakeasy unfurl or unfold or both. And we started calling it, so I don't even know if a member might have calling it the Speakeasy of Strength, because there was we had a Yelp page with the address and everything, but it wasn't a proper business. It was, you went to this like kind of sketchy looking corner right before a big expressway. And it was like, you were either going to have a great workout experience or step into a murder room. But that's where the name Speakeasy of Strength came from. And when we opened here, my original LLC DBA was Fury Industries, because it was based around, I had the podcast, I was presenting and I was training. So it was like me. And then the gym, I didn't really love the word Fury because I think it's a misrepresentation of like the type of coaching I do. I think it's intimidating in a way that like I try not to be. It's not the atmosphere I try to set up. And it was like all about me and not about my team at all. And I felt Speakeasy fit that, but also the way we carry ourselves. Like I try not to be ego driven in what I do. So I felt like we speak easy, and like one of our taglines is speak easy, lift loud. Like do this for yourself and the people that rely on you, but like you don't have to be, I don't know, like an egotistical a-hole on Instagram about the whole thing. Now I probably cross those lines sometimes, but I try, right? We're all on the journey. So that's where the name came from. And then unfortunately you have a pandemic, and every time someone's doing something illegal, breaking mandates, it was like speakeasy this, speakeasy that. And people thought that's what I was doing. Like speakeasy became a real hot word in 2020. I've actually had like somebody reach out and like, hey, can I use your name at a gym in this state? Hey, we're opening up in downtown Manhattan. Are you cool if I use your name? I'm like, absolutely not. Like somebody, I'll be honest, somebody in New Jersey is literally calling themselves Speakeasy Strength using neon pink and neon green. And their tagline, we say live long, be strong, die mighty. Theirs is like something like play hard, die strong or something. Like it's so die hard. It's like so close. Yeah. I've of course reached out to said person and they ignore me, which, at least legally now it's shown that I wish everybody the best, but like it's literally in neon colors. But yeah, the speakeasy thing became a weird one.
Because I think speakeasy we don't really have over here is not that's never really been used over here. So it was kind of like, I think it's because I remember from watching things like Al Capone and everything, it's kind of like prohibition era, kind of where people used to go to bars and drink illegally, wasn't it? They were
secret bars during prohibition when it was all illegal. So and there's always been a few still in Manhattan, really cool places. I actually there's a hot dog spot in the Lower East Side. I think it's called Griff Dog, and you can go in there, get an amazing hot dog, but then you go to a telephone booth and it leads you into a speakeasy. I sat next to, actually, of all people, Emma Stone, from the Spider-Man movie, sat next to me and went in with her friend. And I was with my buddy from Japan, and we were like, I think that was Emma Stone. And then we were too like chicken, I think, to try the speakeasy. I'm not cool enough to like have a secret knocker, handshake, or code word. I don't travel in those circles.
But that kind of works well, I suppose, because the Speakeasy of Strength, because your facility, it looks like, I mean, I can see you in there at the moment. I think the actual frontage, the sort of that leads onto the street, it's quite unassuming, isn't it? And it's so someone could kind of walk past it. It's almost like a hidden gem, I suppose, within the strip. Is that right?
I would like to say it's a hidden gem. It's a small storefront. I mean, we're very fortunate. We're street level. Our street doesn't have a ton of foot traffic. 3rd Avenue in Brooklyn is sort of right at the edge of industrial land. So if you go across the street from my front window, if you're watching this, it's all, it's mostly homes and apartment buildings. But when you come this way towards 2nd Avenue, there's a few homes, but it's mostly like garages, manufacturing, warehouses, car shops and stuff. And then it goes into like a big Lowe's hardware construction supply spot, and then the actual Gowanus Canal. Then there's another couple of blocks of industrial. So we're like right on the edge of the neighborhood, which I love because it's like a big, quirky, not fully gentrified mix where like my neighbors sort of pseudo super, they own the grocery store right next door, and they all grew up here. So I have like local guys in the summer and spring in the evening just blasting Latin music and drinking Coronas, and like they have our back here. Like if anybody ever gives you a hassle, you let us know, we'll take care of it. It's kind of like a really neighborhood vibe, which is cool. The neighborhood is changing though, because a lot of people did move out of Manhattan and come to, I mean, a lot of people left New York City and New York State, but a lot of people are moving into Brooklyn to have a little bit more space, not be quite as congested. And quite frankly, New York City is not dead by any means, but there's a lot of extra level sketchiness that's been arising. It's starting to feel a little bit more like the 80s and 90s inside Manhattan right now.
I was going to ask, obviously you mentioned you kind of addressed the Coach Fury for someone who's not involved in fitness and doesn't know you and has spoke to you. Might just be the name is quite intimidating. But from working with Mark Fisher and working with that whole kind of it's kind of like a theatrical kind of vibe and community, and I've seen from the content you put out and photos on the website and things, the kind of people you attract. You're not a kind of a typical gym that most people would think of, bodybuilders walking around and stuff like that. The kind of people you attract, they look very, very kind of normal and very maybe people who maybe wouldn't go to a big kind of corporate gym in the city and that sort of thing. So what's that kind of philosophy behind that kind of helps you attract those sort of people, do you think?
I think my philosophy is definitely more about longevity and enjoying movement and enjoying strength and being in it for the long haul. Like the live long, be strong, die mighty thing, the coffin sword logo of mine, which is there, it's right there, is all about the long game. And aesthetics are going to come and go. And quite frankly, I'm of average looks to begin with. And I don't mean that as self-deprecating, like I'm not going to be Brad Pitt, but I can lift. And I want to be able to pick up my kids. I want to be able to run with they're old enough now where like picking up something I'm not really doing all the time, but like I want to be able to go to Disneyland with my great grandkids. So that's part of it. And that's the messaging we put out very clearly. One of the things I picked up from Mark Fisher Fitness was just to be me. It'd be 100% me. And I mean, that is flawed and all. And I'm not, I don't really know where all this is coming from or going, but you know, the stations on our walls, it's Chadwick Boseman, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Lizzo, Keanu Reeves, and MCA from the Beastie Boys. So just that alone, sort of in a way, if you think of what those people might mean to me or to you, sets our core values without saying inclusivity, right? Or inclusiveness. But it also draws some people in to be like, oh, he doesn't have like, I do have a big skull. One of our speakeasy things, big skull, but it's not like all like crossbones and that type of stuff. We have elements of that because it's skateboarding, but I think my messaging is more about that and less about selling transformations. Like I understand the marketing and I understand when people like have that snap of fitness, but we're also not Autobots or Decepticons. Like you're already good. I come from people in a state of you're already rad. Let's get stronger, more mobile, right? Well, we're going to plus this up. Right. That's the growth mindset. Fisher 1% better, that whole thing. It's hard to say these things without almost directly copying Mark, but that's where it comes from. And people respond to that. So our three types of members are one, never been to the gym or have been shamed out of a gym. Right. Number two is going to be either formerly used to train and has injuries or never really trained and has some severe injuries that they don't have really the hope of recovery. But physical therapists send us back here, or a friend of theirs that a physical therapist sent them back here. So coping with people with like pretty significant pain levels and making them strong. And then the third one is like the cool thing with all those acronyms is trainers. Like a lot of trainers, like my whole original team trained with me first. I was their coach. And then when this place opened up, there was the opportunity for them to come on. So we have this high level, lovely, similar mindset and coach trainer membership. But a lot of the people are pretty new to fitness or they've done a lot of the bouncing around. I don't know if Class Pass is a thing out by you, but where it's like they sign up for membership and they can hop here, they can hop there. We're one of the first places that like they stick with for a while, or for some of our, I hate bringing gender into this, but you know how like women are so marketed to not lift heavy. We're often the place where we're showing people like, look, you didn't just turn into Lou Ferrigno by deadlifting a 48K bell, and look at how strong you are and how capable you are. So that's kind of where it comes from. And then this aesthetic, I try to make this place, all our design work is based on 80s skateboard graphics. It's all bright, bold, neon. the toys, the art, all that stuff, the skateboards. I want this to be like, if it's your third home, you know that phrase, like third home, right? Your third home for listeners would be your home. Work is usually your second home. And I want the gym to be like your third home, or at least stop off. And so if we're like, think of your local video store from back in the day, or skate shop, or tattoo shop, or record store, minus the elitism that usually comes in with those. I realize when I say that, usually you have to break a barrier. We don't have that barrier here. But I want you to have that vibe, but we're a gym. We just happen to be a really high level personal training studio that has no reason to, being here on a main avenue. And that's where we come from. So
I know that I think it was Starbucks who had the phrase, the third space or something, where they wanted you to, you like you say, homework, and then you'd have your Starbucks and I think obviously when Friends came out with Central Perk and all that kind of thing, it was that kind of place where you go to hang out, and it was, so I think that's great that you can have, and that's what we try and do with my place as well, where it's somewhere you go, you hang out with friends and you train and you grab a coffee and it feels like you say, another home away from home kind of thing.
Yeah, the only difference I'll say with us here, and it was funny, we were talking about this at a certification yesterday, I just taught a couple of courses over the weekend, is I also don't want people to live at the gym. I want this to be a place that they take what they get here and express with their friends and family outside of here. I think that's something too we get lost in when we become like, I love the gym, I'm going to be at the gym. I used to see people for 5 hours straight at 5 Points. Between Muay Thai and strength and conditioning. I actually want you to, like, it's great to have friends, but I want you to go do something outside of the gym. If this is the minimal effective dose, here it is, you have this stuff, go do your thing. And so but I want this to be that spot where you feel comfortable to be around. So in the pandemic, like, we were the first or second spot for a lot of people to come back indoors for anything. Which is great, and I really appreciate that, and how our members have followed along with us on that.
I think that's a great ethos with what you've got there. You've mentioned loads there about like the mental health side and then not getting obsessed by it as well. So you'll get people who are like, right, I want to get into it, who are all or nothing type people, who actually are, because most people say they are, but they're not. But Paul goes on about this, the other host who you've not met, and he goes like, he says people come to him and say, I'm all or nothing, and he goes, well, I haven't seen the all yet. All you've done is nothing. But all of that, and that all goes with your whole story there of you used to work in a job, stress, deadlines, long hours. I put a post up about this yesterday because you've just described my life. I haven't got any kids, but I was a trader for an energy firm, and I had to make the company money, and it was long hours and stress, boss on my case, this, that, deadlines, targets, got divorced after I got made redundant, started being a trainer, didn't want to be one of those trainers, wanted to be a nice bloke, and anger issue, all of that, everything. But the thing with that is the people who come to you are going to be those people who haven't done anything about it yet. You did something about it in your late 30s, well, mid-late 30s, say. Yeah. They're going to be at that stage or still working at 45 and haven't done anything about it yet. Not that they need to leave their job or anything, but they've got to take hold of some sort of lifestyle issue because it will take hold of them. And who better to understand that but somebody who's done it?
Yeah, so I think that definitely, between my history of being injured and quite frankly, not being a shredded coach, but that is still highly capable, it makes it relatable in a way. And the other thing is I will get calls now that, I'm going to be 53. Do you take old people? And I'm like, I turned 50 this month.
Not this month. Do you take old people? It's like,
I turned 50 in October, but yeah, it's a weird thing. So that's who I'm servicing. It also keeps like some, egos and mentalities that like are great in certain circumstances. Like, by the way, somebody wants to have like, the super Spartan warrior Viking gym, go do it. There's people for that.
Yeah.
I just want to surround myself with the kind of people that I want to open doors for. And gyms are hard, right? Like I say this all the time, but nobody goes to a gym, or almost no one goes to a gym first or even last because they feel awesome about themselves. Right. There's always a source of pain or awkwardness or shame somewhere at step. So let me remove that barrier first to open up to the process. And I actually try not to get people to come in and start like 3, 4, 5 times a week. I'll be like, let's start with 2. Let's start with 2. Show yourself that, build a habit, expand versus retract, because the retract's going to feel like you're failing already. You know, I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy either. Omicron took care of that, even if I was, because no one was signing up. But those types of things, I really try to make it slow, steady, approachable. And then you know how it is. Some people don't buy into your stuff for a little bit, and then 4 weeks in, there's something comes up where they have to pick something up or pick someone up, a kid up, and they're like, oh, that was easy. And that's the game change, right? That's the result, as opposed to like going on an in-body and doing a full body scan. Because then there's your opening up to failure. I can always make someone stronger. I can 100% guarantee it. I can't necessarily make someone leaner all the time. They're only in here for an hour, maybe 3 hours tops a week, 4 hours. I think a few people here 4 times a week. So I try to be very realistic and caring and loving about that. I don't lie about it. I don't say I'm going to accomplish something I'm not going to accomplish. But I think that's an important thing that got lost in the sale, you know, because that's the other thing. When we're all starting out, we're going to say anything to take on everybody, even if it makes us miserable. We're going to price cut. We're going to go, oh, that person just seems like an asshole. Now, mind you, everyone deserves training, but we're just going to deal with it sometimes. Versus now, I'll very gladly be like, it doesn't happen because of our messaging is strong enough now. But, you know, if there's somebody that doesn't fit, I'll happily tell them where to go. I'll give them a suggestion where I think they're going to be a better fit. But I don't want people peeing in our pool. Unfortunately, we haven't had that happen yet.
It's great that though, because I had a new guy I was talking to today, and I was like, you know, and it was teaching him some stuff, and I was like, he's been coming for a week, and I was like, you know, it's one of those things. Imagine it is heavy when you're using the weight, because everything's easy until it gets heavy. So you can get away with lots of stuff now, but when it gets heavier, and you can almost see these people going, why do I need to lift heavy weights? What's the point? You know, I'm not here to lift heavy weights. I'm here to lose a bit of weight and blah, blah. But then, like you say, if they have to go and pick something up or do something, or like there's something in real life that's going to come along and they're going to go, that was easy. Like I had a guy who had to put a mattress on top of his car to drive it somewhere. And he did it himself. He didn't need any help. And he was well happy with it. He was like, that is brilliant. I was like, there you go. That's what we've been doing for the last 6 months. And he was like, all of a sudden he's bought in. It took that long, but he was like, I'm in now, I'm done.
And that's those are the victories I feel as coaches we should be the most proud of, as opposed to like the double body weight deadlift. I mean, I wish I had a life PR for those people when it hits, so we can ring that bell for them when they hit their personal record or something, because that's the game change, right? That's the real life success that they're seeing from training with us.
Steve, I'm aware you've got to jump onto another call in a second, so I'm going to wrap up. If people want to find out more about you, follow what you do, maybe find out about online coaching with you and the programs that you do, what's the best way for people to do that?
Sure. My email is Fury, Fury, at Speakeasy of Strength, speakeasyofstrength.com. My Instagram is at Speakeasy of Strength, BK. Speakeasyofstrength.com is the website, so you can follow all that stuff. We do have, my friend Tina Moore and I, we do have a 6-week online kettlebell program coming up starting February 14th called Die Mighty Method, which, as you mentioned, I was a former RKC instructor. I did a lot of work with the early days of Strong First as an assistant instructor. I'm basically taking my now 12 years of kettlebell training and making it the most simple, straightforward to teach people program. So every week we go through one of the big 6. So it's 6.5 weeks. You can find out about that on the website. It's been super cool because we all know when we go to courses and certs, it's like drinking from a fire hose and you're worrying about pass or failing. This one is just a bunch of people having 6 weeks to get to know each other, even though it's mostly virtual. Most of it is actually, there's only an hour a week on Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, that you're actually working live together. And it's just something that's been super cool. And my friend Tina Moore, who owns a gym outside, you should get her on the show. She's a pisser. MSC Strength.
I think I've seen her on Instagram.
Yeah, she's on your website as well, isn't she, Tina?
Yeah, she's awesome. She's like my sister from another mister. So that starts up February 14th. If anybody's interested, we're at full price now of $399. But if you mention this podcast, if it opens in time.
It'll
be
no, it should be out before. I think it'll be out before the 14th, the week before.
Awesome. You just mention use the code word Boba Fett, and we'll give you $10 off on the launch price.
And if you can wrap it up in literally 10 seconds, what did you think of the Matrix 4? Because you mentioned it earlier.
I was super confused in the beginning, and I quite love it. It made more sense as it went through. I understand why it's divisive. I think it's the second best Matrix movie we had. And I will watch Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves do anything together. But I actually quite loved it. I just finished it the second time because it just dropped off the streaming for free.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I went in with low expectations because I'd heard lots of people not like it, but I was really pleasantly surprised. Yeah, so brilliant. Steve, if you've got to leave, then that's absolutely fine, and then I'll do a little wrap up after you go because I know you've got to jump onto another call. Yeah,
I apologize. I forgot that I had another call. Look, I'll come back sometimes if you'll have me.
Yes.
Does that sound desperate?
No, it'd be great.
I feel bad that we're cutting it short. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate meeting you, James. I want to say this. James is a good guy. He reached out to just say a nice, polite, a friendly comment about something he read on my social media and how I've been handling myself. And I've mentioned this on my podcast. That is something that I do where I'll see somebody that I think is just handling themselves nicely, potentially under fire, and just be like, I appreciate you. So thank you for having me on and sending the message. That to me sings volumes of you as a person. Pete, I don't know, no helmet. We just met. I'm sure you're awesome. But thank you so much. And listeners, thank you so much for, hope you got something out of it. Reach out. Let me know if I can help. Cool?
Thanks, Steve. Cheers, mate. Take care.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right, guys. So that was great. That was really, really good. Yeah, like I say, Steve just had to jump on with someone else. He just had the hour with us. So thank you so much for listening. The next 2 episodes that we have a really interesting guy coming up from Rangers of Strength called Lucas Aaron, who we've got coming on next. And then we have Dave Whitley, the Iron Tamer, back on the episode after that. So that's going to be episode 76 and 77. So please do like, share, subscribe. If you're listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please do leave a review as well. And also go onto the Facebook group, just search groups, Health Oddity, come into that, let us know, send us messages about guests that you would like us to have on. I will mention just before we go, towards the back end of last week, I think I may have even mentioned it on last week's podcast, Kirsten Tullock, Little Tank, messaged us and said, you should really try and get on Bud Jefferies onto the podcast. And this is someone that myself and Pete have followed, and I think Paul has for many years. And we did reach out to Bud a while ago, and we were just literally going to send him another message. And we heard some terrible news over the weekend that Bud Jefferies had passed away over the weekend, which has hit many people within the strength community very, very hard. He was a fantastic guy. He was an inspirational guy. He was a massive guy, a very, very strong man that did stuff that just, didn't he, Pete? It just looked like it was physically impossible, the kind of things he used to do as a 300-pound man standing on one leg and doing handstand push-ups and all this kind of stuff. I mean,
obviously we didn't know him, but he was an imposing chap by the looks of it. But then when you heard him speak, I've listened to him on podcasts. Steve Cotter interviewed him on Instagram Live, and he just he just seemed like such a nice man. So I was really looking forward to getting him on here. And there's a few people have kind of said, there's never really a plus side to it, but he died loving what he was doing. He was actually training at the time, wasn't he? But also his son, he had Noah's Army, didn't he? Because his son Noah got killed in a bike accident a few years back. So
yeah, and he was only in his 20s, I think, wasn't he? His son.
He was 19 or 20, I think. So he'll at least hopefully they've been reunited, So they'll be lifting heavy stuff somewhere, doing silly things, hopefully.
Yeah, so just a little, a little nod and a little tribute to Bud Jefferies, who, is, and I know that Dave Whitley, who's coming on was very close with Bud. So, you know, I'm not sure if he'll be, you know, able to talk about it at this stage. It's very soon, but yeah, it was, he's a fantastic guy, and will be sorely missed from, and has inspired many people, those he knew and those he didn't know, and just knew him through social media and watched what he did and things. So yes, so we will see you next week. We will see you next week with Lucas Aaron from Rangers of Strength. Paul will be back again, Paul Bassett. So we'll have all three of us back for that one. So thank you very much for listening again, guys. Take care, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.